Thanks so much for attending our session this morning. As Kirsty just mentioned, my background is in public health, and about 2 years ago, Sara, I spoke to Sara and she said, I'm running this amazing new program. It's an infrastructure delivery, and I said, that's very different to what I'm currently doing. She said, no, come and have a look. And I have to say, it was such a brilliant decision to come across to this program. Oh, what an amazing community of people you guys are. I feel really welcomed to be part of the community engagement professional community, and specifically this infrastructure sector. So thank you for having me along. Today we are presenting the culmination of a year's work which has gone into defining what we mean by excellence in engagement. And we couldn't have done this work without many of you here in the room and our fantastic partners. And I would just like to say particular thanks to Melbourne Water, who have been along every step of the way with us and are part of the reason that we're able to present this work today. They've been fantastic in ensuring that what we present and the work that we do is relevant and useful to industry. So thank you for Greg and the team for helping me and giving me an office and a space at Melbourne Water. Thank you. And as you can see, the list of partners that have been involved in the Next Gen's programme of work, we are grateful for your ongoing support and input into the whole programme of work that we're currently carrying out. So I want to set the context before we begin. If you've been to any of our sessions this week, this slide may be familiar to you. The pipeline within Australia for infrastructure delivery is currently 235 billion. A lot of projects going on. And when we conducted the annual survey of the state of infrastructure and engagement, one of the key findings from that survey was that the most impactful issue that influences project delay, project delay, cancellation or mothballing is stakeholder pressure. We also found in that survey that 2/3 of respondents said that stakeholder pressure is most impactful during that planning and delivery phase. For those of you who are taking photos of this slide, I should also mention, if you want to use this QR code, it will take you to our website where we've got the infographics associated with the annual survey and more infographics like this, which may be very helpful in your work. But yeah, as I was saying, 2/3 of our survey respondents said stakeholder pressure is most influential during that planning and delivery stage. So you can see that we're in a really vulnerable and critical time point across Australia where the majority of projects are currently sitting. The Infrastructure Australia audit also said that over the next 10 years they can see an expansion of 600 billion worth of projects. So the future is really exciting in terms of infrastructure delivery, but there's also potentially a huge amount of pressure. And so when we initially, the Next Gen project, went out to consultation to ask you what is most important in terms of moving and informing how community engagement can be delivered, there was a real need for us to develop an evidence base which we could inform that delivery. And so we have started as a way of developing that evidence base to really begin to understand what excellence in engagement actually entails so that we can begin to understand how projects are performing and how excellent engagement can deliver good or optimal outcomes for communities and projects. And we see being able to define excellence gives us a number of ways in which we can use that. First of all, it's going to give us the mechanism to be really able to assess how projects are performing. It will allow us to look at current and completed projects and to identify those engagement strengths and areas for improvement. By defining excellence, it also allows us to begin to compare with projects from different sectors, from different regions, internationally, to look at how we might benchmark how our projects are performing, but also to understand how we can gather lessons, to share lessons learned, and to again drive improvement. And this is particularly important for us. It's one of the key drivers of this project. As Kirsty said, I'm leading the development of the case centre, which is a big drive to be able to gather case studies of projects and understand how they are performing and the impact that engagement has on community outcomes and also project delivery. And so being able to define what the key characteristics of excellence are, it will allow us to collect the relevant data and really be able to determine how engagement in particular stakeholders has impacted on the project performance. But in defining excellence, it also acts as a guide, enabling us to refine current and new plans towards an agreed industry standard. So this has been a process which has been one that has been really embedded in an engagement model, in that we started out this project alongside Melbourne Water, who, as I said, have been instrumental in helping us get to the point where we are today. They've helped us define what the questions we actually need to ask, the outcomes that we're actually looking for, and also at every step have helped us in the process of our iterations and getting to the draft that we're able to show you today. But it started out with a literature review where we believe we analysed about 315,000 words. We looked at literature, academic literature from lots of different sectors, what best practice entails, health, education, civil governance. We looked at all of some of the key characteristics which are across all those different sectors to see what people are describing best practice engagement to be. We also looked at community audits, government reports, industry reports to really bring together how industry and how academia was describing best practice community engagement. Once we had that literature review, that was a framework for us then to begin testing it. We spoke with 19 experts, people who believed to be extremely influential in the field. We also spoke to community members, and I'll talk a bit more about that later. But from that interview data, which Melbourne Water helped us gather, they were instrumental in actually conducting the interviews. We trained them up as researchers, which was a really exciting and new approach to the way in which we can actually conduct research. And with that data that we gathered, we were able to get to our second iteration. Over the course of this year, we've then hosted 4 workshops across Australia, engaging with people in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane and Canberra, and also at the NCIF conference in August to really gather feedback on what people think of the framework that we've developed, get their feedback, what's missing, what the language they were using, is that appropriate, and again go through another round of iteration. And where we are today is what we'd like to present to you. But we think we collected about 600 data points over that course of that consultation. And one of the key things that we really drove home to us during that is, one, the importance of that we really do need community input if we're going to define excellence in community engagement, and also that while as a community engagement community, it's great that we've all got an idea of what excellence is, but we need to also test that with non-engagement professionals. So this is really phase 1 of our project, and we will go on next year to work with community members to get their input, and also project managers, engineers, finances, contract procurers to really hone this in and further develop the framework as to where we currently are. Being at IAP2, it would be remiss of me to not thank IAP2 for their involvement in this project, and at every step of the way we've involved IAP2 in terms of the literature review. That has the core values, the spectrum, the QA standard formed a really important component of us being able to get to the qualities which are most important for excellence. IAP2 members were interviewed during the interview stage, and members and staff attended the workshops. And we're really excited and looking forward to next year to strengthening the alignment with our work and IAP2's broader initiatives that they'll be carrying out in the future. So it's an exciting time to really bring together the knowledge that exists within this community. So from the consultation, it became really apparent to us that infrastructure engagement excellence needs to deliver outcomes that are community-centred, coordinated and cost-effective, and these are the themes that run throughout the framework that we've delivered. And the way in which we've set up this framework is comprised of 4 components. On a high level, we have what we call in the fundamentals, which are the 3 essentials necessary for engagement excellence. Underneath those fundamentals, we have what we're calling the standards, which are the 10 qualities of engagement excellence. Those qualities are then divided into indicators, and an exciting component of work which we'll be embarking on next year is then to develop a scorecard which will be associated with each of those standards and indicators, so that we'll then be able to really test and understand and assess how projects are performing against each of these standards and indicators. So there's a lot of information and there's a huge amount of data that we've been able to collect and to comprise to create this framework. The framework can be used at multiple levels. It can be used at just looking at things from a fundamental perspective right down to the indicators and the scorecard. So we hope that there's going to be lots of uses depending on the purpose of which you might find it useful. So the fundamentals: planning, relationships and alignment. We believe these are the core things which are absolutely essential for infrastructure excellence. That relationships are meaningful, that they're respectful and that they're responsible, and that at the heart of every engagement is the ability and the need to build quality relationships with our communities and stakeholders. Planning, from scoping at the very beginning through to evaluation at the end. Planning incorporates a huge component and an essential element of engagement excellence. And for us, alignment, it's about the systems in which this engagement takes place, understanding and acknowledging that for planning relationships to happen, we need to understand and recognise the contextual factors in which engagement takes place and recognise those to raise the standards of what we deliver. So here are our standards. You'll see that for each fundamental, we've divided those standards up. So for planning, there's 4: purpose, sound design, appropriate timing and value for money. You'll see in the brochures that we put on the table the detailed explanation and definition of what we have. I won't go through them all today. But also, again, the QR code there, you can use that and the small website address which is there. That will really give you all the detail that's behind this presentation. So again, relationships which are respectful, responsible and meaningful, and an engagement which is aligned. So where we look at the organisational buy-in for engagement, the contextual awareness, they're trying to reduce cumulative impacts of projects, minimising disruption within communities, and also the essential element which is very specific to infrastructure, but that contract management and the importance of good contract management. So in delivering this, we've then gone on to the next step, where we've been able to define the indicators of what we look for, the signs that engagement is being delivered excellently. You can see, for instance, with sound design, if I take that as an example, scoping right through to evaluation and the continuous improvement of what we would want to see within projects. Again, for relationships, the indicators that we look for there, and the indicators that we'd be looking for aligned engagement. So this is a really comprehensive document. We believe we've taken on board the feedback that we've received over the last year, but we're also continuing to evolve this. This is a work in progress, and we're really excited to continue to work with our partners, to the community members, and to those outside of the community engagement community to keep refining this and to deliver something which is going to be useful in your day-to-day practice and which again can raise the standards across the sector. So what I'd like to do now is to hand over to Bain, who, as I mentioned, has been really instrumental in helping us progress this project. Greg's the Community Engagement Manager at Melbourne Water and has really stood alongside us, steering us in the right direction over the last year. So I'm really delighted to hand over to Greg, who'll talk a bit more about how Melbourne Water see the framework being used.
Thanks, Kirsty. And I suppose I'm standing here really pleased to be part of this relationship with our new and the Next Gen project. It's a bit of confusion. We have our own Next Generation Community Engagement project, and then AU came to us and said, we've got one too. So we thought, let's actually pool our resources and look for better outcomes. So it's been a fantastic experience for us. Melbourne Water, for those that don't know, we're the wholesale provider of water to the retail water companies in Melbourne. We're also the wholesale treater of sewerage in Melbourne. The other function we have is probably where we're much closer to community is our regional waterway and drainage and floodplain function. So we're an interesting organisation. We have wholesale through retail sort of functions and a whole lot of community touch points. And that's why we're so focused and committed to best practice community engagement at Melbourne Water. Can people hear me okay? Is that all right? Great. So I suppose I was asked the question to sort of just talk briefly about how do you think Melbourne Water will go about using the framework? We've also been integral in its development, so really seen it evolve and expand. But I thought, in thinking about that, as I was talking to the team, we really felt it was in these three areas that our sort of main opportunity for use and hopefully benefit from the framework came into play. And the first one really there is about planning. We really see opportunity for Melbourne Water to use the framework to guide the development of our infrastructure engagement planning. Like everyone here, we obviously need to make sure we're continuing to take a consistent and high quality approach to how we plan these projects, in particular the community engagement elements of them. So I suppose in thinking about that, I think about the framework will provide a better structure, a common language, and clear parameters for us as an organisation to plan, implement and monitor our community engagement activity and keep delivering good quality infrastructure outcomes as well as engagement outcomes. The other area we really felt the framework would provide benefit is in the better defining and quantifying our contractual arrangements. So again, like I'm sure a lot of infrastructure providers here, we deliver our infrastructure work through a mix of in-sourced, our own teams, and outsourced partnerships, alliances, etc. So that's, that presents some challenges. We've got our own approach, but we're working with others as well that might have their own take on what good infrastructure and good engagement outcomes are. So again, the framework will ensure a common language. It will really help drive common KPIs in the engagement space for us, and really make sure we have that common narrative between, particularly our partners, our project partners in delivery, when we pull together to deliver projects. And that really helps us talk to our community partners in a very consistent and informed way, with that one voice when it comes to engagement. And finally, the other area we really felt the framework will be useful is in our benchmarking. And obviously, you can apply benchmarking to a whole range of scales. I think the framework, particularly for the industry, will be really useful to apply across industry. But really thinking about it from a broader perspective, we really feel there's opportunities for us to sort of benchmark current practice against future practice. Where do we want to go? How do we uplift? And also look at project by project sort of assessment and benchmarking. What's working well? Where are the improvement opportunities? What mistakes have we made along the way, and what improvements can we make? So that will be really important for us in using the framework. So there are just some thoughts there. Click up to the next slide. Kirsty, how do I do? Just the arrow. I hope I don't break it. Very good. All right. And I suppose the other question the research guys asked us was, okay, where do we really feel Melbourne Water sees the greatest benefit from the framework? And it's probably more its applied application. And in thinking about that, we again thought about some parameters. And you'll talk about this a little bit more in your tables and as we sort of undertake the fishbowl exercise. But a really key one for us was about purpose. Purpose of engagement to deliver infrastructure outcomes. I think a lot of people here would agree that we've got to be much clearer about the drivers and the benefits of our work and what our contract with the community is when it comes to engagement. An example for Melbourne Water in this space was with our flood retarding basin upgrades program. We had a really significant series of upgrades required for retarding basins. And when we first went out to the community to talk to them about this, we really probably weren't as clear as we could be about why we were doing it, what the need was, and what role the community had in shaping the project. And as can happen, I'm sure we'll talk some more stories today. We had a lot of community challenge and pushback about, we don't want you to do this. Trees particularly are a really sore point. So we really had to learn quickly. We had to tighten up our focus on what we were engaging with the community about and what influence they could have on the final outcome. So the framework, the standards, etc., will really drive us to be sharper in our purpose thinking. What's the objectives? What's the purpose of our engagement? The other sort of key learning opportunity for us, where I think we've uplifted in response to some of the work that's come out of the framework, is in appropriate timing. And again, this is, I'm sure, a very common experience that we've all been in situations where either because of political urgency, whether it be a funding issue, whatever it be, you're getting into projects where you're pushing out an outcome probably much more quickly than community are ready for or willing to accept. A key learning for us was a project in Fishbowl North, inner Melbourne. So you can imagine inner Melbourne, pretty educated, vocal residents, but also really strong commercial customers and stakeholders we had to work with. We basically gave that community 3.5 weeks notice that we were going to close their street down for a year to upgrade a sewer pipe. So that was really, talk about me coming into this role, that was probably the catalyst for me to come into this role, because the organisation had I wouldn't say a crisis, but really learnt a lot from that process that, we stuffed that up, didn't we? And the community's angry here, and we really stuffed that up. So we had a lot of work to do to really rethink our approach. And we're at a point now where anything of that size or scale, we're talking to community at least 12 months ahead of. And we're just involving them every step in the way. They're aware of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and they're shaping the project to minimise the impact of the work. I'm sure water companies particularly can sort of think of that examples where that's happening for them. And I suppose we've really flipped it. A really good example in a similar context was our recent M41 water main replacement project. Same sort of customers, same sort of environment, same sort of issues. 12 to sort of 16 months we're out talking to those communities, and got that project just really went really well, got to look in a really effective way. So I'm very happy with that flip in terms of where we've put a lot of focus on the framework. And probably the final one is that in terms of where we think the framework can help drive improvement for Melbourne Water again is in organisational buy-in. There was a comment in the main plenary before about engineers. So I'm not an engineer, I'm an ecologist, environmental scientist by training. But there still is a bit of an issue, even in Melbourne Water, where we've worked hard to bring our engineers, our project managers along. There still can be some perception that either community engagements, either a soft science on one hand, or it's the dark arts on the other hand. So, I sort of come from a background where I'm a project manager, deliverer of environmental programs, but in a waterway context, I know that you can't do those things. It's a social construct. You can't do those things without community. That learning isn't quite there for some of our people. For most of our people, yes, but for some of our people, it's still a bit of a barrier. And that makes sense. They come from very technical professions where they have the knowledge for these outcomes, so they want to apply it. So that all makes sense. That's fine. But I'm sure, like people here again, by working with those project managers, with those technical people, they very quickly, when it's a great example and a great experience for them, they turn to a very strong, positive advocate for good community engagement. That's what we're really trying to do. So that's still our greatest opportunity. We've got leadership buy-in, the CEO, the board, very committed to these outcomes. Most of our project managers, but there's probably some people in the middle that we really need to keep working on and with to bring community engagement and excellence in infrastructure engagement delivery to the fore. And I think the framework most particularly will help there because it will drive a very disciplined, rigorous, clear sort of path for those people to think about. So it actually gives that structure, that rigour, the metrics, the KPIs, it's all there, and that's the language that project managers and a lot of technical people like to speak. So it really, in my mind, sort of legitimises the practice for them. So that's probably our perspective on sort of where we see a lot of the uplift and what, I suppose more importantly, what we've been working on at Melbourne Water as the frameworks evolve. So hopefully from that maybe you can have a think about for your organisation, what are some of the elements of the framework that you think you need to particularly focus in or could use in your own situation.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. That's great. That's exactly what we'd like you to do now. On your table, there are two of the standards. I think each table has two standards, which have, along with the definition of the standard, also the indicators and our definitions of how to define those indicators. We would like you on your table to have a think about some of the past projects that have taken place that you've been involved in and how your projects have performed against that standard. What is it about that particular project that suggested excellence or maybe not excellence? But also, as this is an ongoing process of improvement for us, we'd also like your feedback on the indicators. Are they helpful? Have they improved? Is there anything missing within that standard? So we'll have about 10-15 minutes to go through that, and then we'll go back to the room. And then after that, if you've been to any of our workshops, we've been running what we've been called this fishbowl discussion, where we'd really love to have a broader discussion about the use of this framework going forward. So I'll hand it back to you for about 10-15 minutes. Have a deep dive into the standards. I would like to start our discussion and hope we end it on a really positive note. I would really love to hear within your discussion how your projects went against these standards, and if you have examples that you'd like to share of where you were able to achieve excellence, if anybody would like to share, or where you think you're getting there. Would anybody like to start? We've got the from your discussions and looking at the standards, some experiences you've had of how your projects have gone. Any areas where there's room for improvement, or where you could be honest in terms of project delivery and performance related to each standard? Don't be shy. Yeah, can I?
Yeah, I have a go. I'll probably hit myself. But
That's all right. You don't know. You can
Throw it back.
I'm sorry, hello. I think I forgot the question now.
share your experiences around some of the how your projects performed against
I don't
standard.
think it's working.
Oh, can you just see?
Yeah, it is. You just gotta speak up into it.
Hello? Hello? I was just going to make a comment.
Thank you.
So it wasn't really an insight, it was just that, we've all worked in infrastructure for a long time, and I love this framework. I think it's wonderful where it's going. And I think what came out in our conversation too was the timing part of it.
Yeah.
Because infrastructure there's so many deadlines, it's very deadline driven. And I'm just wondering if anybody has thought about that at your tables and how this might help organisations understand that. How does this fit in with timing?
Yeah. So,
Hello.
do you mean in terms of how this could be used?
Yes, how could this be used? Do you see this influencing timing, or the planning of projects in particular
Yeah.
can need a lot of time, and we're not often given that timing at the beginning of projects to really get it done properly. So
Okay. Greg's got a.
Where's the ball? Where's the goal?
I feel like picking in the middle. Okay.
Is it working?
Yeah.
Hello?
So,
I think I've said too much anyway.
Thank you.
I just wanted to think through that a little bit more. I want to clarify my earlier comments. At Melbourne Water, we're really fortunate that we sort of can control our timing. We're quite, it's unique and blessed that we're one of those unique organisations that can plan our work with a 5-year water plan, strategise. We can be talking to the community 5 years out of landing that water pipe. So that and we understand that's quite unique and ideal, really, from an engagement perspective. So I don't have an answer to that, but all I can say is acknowledge that that's not the case for. It's so contextual, isn't it? Depends what sort of organisation it is, who's driving the investment, where the money's coming from.
so this could be quite influential
Yeah.
Yes.
in that perspective. If engagers could bring this into their organisations to help have that conversation around timing, possibly.
This feels ridiculous, this thing, doesn't it? Okay, so hi, I'm Associate Professor Sara Bice. I'm so bought into this framework because I spend all of my time working on it with Kirsty. It's really nice to be able to present something and actually have some really helpful, thank you for that first bit of feedback, that's nice. We do have in the indicators a discussion around what we've called, and this comes from your own language, community sensitive timing. And we talk in that about allowing enough time to understand the community's needs, to understand how much time the community actually requires just to get their heads around what it is that you're doing, and to allow for that in project planning. So for us, timing has come up again and again and again, and when you look at where the most impactful issues occur, and this is what you're telling us, it is in those earlier phases. It's in those earlier phases, and so we've got to get get this timing thing right. And so we're really, really pleased to see that Melbourne Water, out of all of these indicators, have picked up appropriate timing as the key. And certainly if you do a deeper dive into the draft as it stands, community-sensitive timing comes out really strongly. Okay, now you can throw this.
But I was just going to add as well that from my research of hat on, like, what I would really hope is that as we begin to gather case studies and we're able to look at where timing has taken place and we're able to really assess how timing has influenced project delivery and community outcomes, that we'll be able to have an evidence base to really support that message that you potentially need. We need to go in earlier. And so that is, or not, depending on what, but we'll be able to stop being able to analyse how projects are done and how timing has played a role in that project performance. And so that is one of our hopes. Do you want to check it?
Here it comes. Watch everybody hold on.
Jeff Bain from Western Australia.
Hi.
I deal with projects, community projects and others, but more funding comes from government mainly, and like governments will have both local, state and federal have their budget cycle that identifies future projects. Not all of them necessarily are going to be funded in the time frame that they initially indicated in their planning. And we've been subject to getting approval for a project to proceed, and then funding's withdrawn. So we're given the go-ahead to do preliminary planning and start community engagement. But the danger of that, of course, is that you can build expectations, both positive and negative, if you go in too early. And then the funding's withdrawn or the project's deferred or delayed. So,
Yeah, I think it's a really important one, and I think what we try to do within these frameworks is by calling it appropriate timing, that it's going to be, it has to take into the context of that broader contextual issues that surround the project. Hi.
Hi, I work for Urban Utilities, so we do water and sewage pipelines in the retail space, and for me the standard of appropriate timing would be really good once it was embedded in our processes as the whole point of the approval. And if a project manager hasn't met that, you've got that ability to push back. Mm-hmm. Because I was explaining that for our major projects, which last 2 to 3 years, all of that early engagement and analysis and stakeholder ID happens because they see it as really high impact. But when it comes to a 4-week project where you're working, say, for 4 weeks in the city, it's very much seen as BAU or small fry, and you don't get a lot of notice and you don't get the ability to do the work up front with the stakeholders.
Yes.
And when it comes to commercial businesses and hotels and restaurants, it's their bottom line, and getting a week's notice about 4 weeks of disruption when your hotel's fully booked is make or break from their perspective as far as engagement goes.
Yeah.
So if we're able to hold the line more, once you've got the standards rolled out in your organisation, I think it would be a really great tool, especially based on the quality and the outcomes and the measurements that feed back into that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think as well, one of the things we've been looking at, which is kind of related to what you're saying, is that there's different social risks associated with each project, and that we need to look at these standards in relation to the social risk that occurs when a project takes place. And I think whether it's a 4-week project, which has a real impact during those 4 weeks, or potentially a longer project where the social risk is less, potentially we need to be able to use these standards to really understand, or to be able to have a filter of the social risk aligned with the standards as well. I think it's back here a question.
Thanks. I wonder if I suspect that most people here have had some experience with the challenges associated with their quite through this, because they're working on engagement, generally engagement, public space. And I wonder therefore that we're the right audience, because although it's really useful that in my experience, the role is really our organisational decision makers and projects, right? Project leaders, right? So, I wonder if instead of calling it infrastructure engagement excellence program, it's just a project excellence approach, which should be embedded in and quarterly approach that we do to a certain extent. So it's a comment really.
Great, it's a great comment, and I think when we have gone out to, when we did the workshops, and I think 10% of our workshops with project managers and engineers, we got the feedback, it became really apparent to us really early on that this needs to be something which is potentially not owned by community engagement teams, it's owned outside of the project. But I was wondering if I could throw it to Greg, and just, if you had any reflections from...
Literally throw it. I'm scared. You really just like social media. You sent a wrong text or whatever. Sorry, now I'm going to get my thoughts. You're right, bang on. And the guys have worked really hard to roll out and communicate with project deliverers, decision makers, CEO's board. We still haven't got the project in front of our board yet, but we're really hoping to. But I think that's the fundamental measure of success. And when we have involved our project managers, they've been really, they take that view, which I sort of touched on earlier, that this is disciplined stuff. This is really good thinking, solid, understandable. That's our processes up. So it really does resonate with them. So I think that's something we're observing and seeing in our major capital delivery sort of area when they're exposed to the guidelines. And I just wanted to touch on or comment on the comment about different types of work. Similar to the Queensland scenario, we've got different works at different scales. And I think maybe I hadn't thought about it until that question sort of came up. Maybe there's a scale issue, size of project, duration, risk. That sort of, over time, as we mature the framework and the parameters, we can sort of think about, okay, for that scale, these are the things that are super critical versus, a multi-billion-dollar motorway. The different parameters take different precedence. So, scalability, I think, will be something to think about as we roll around.
Perhaps I to add to that might be an answer.
You need this?
Thanks. I wonder if, based on your experience there, Paul, is there for us, taking this back to organisations, is there language or is there how can we demonstrate this in the terms that project leads and engineers and planners, etc., can understand so it makes more sense to them? I mean, this may do that, but is there something else we can add to that conversation, I guess? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think from this is a core component of next year's research is to test it with them and to understand how changes of language might make it more compatible with their line of thinking, to really have that, to think about how this as a framework can be used within their everyday work. So it is a core component of next year's research.
And I know it's not rocket science, but the one thing we did, and I'm sure lots of other people did, have done it, is, we did in the past have these real divides, the comms and engagement team were on level 4 and delivery team were on level 2. The one simple thing that worked to really bring it together was let's embed our guys in project delivery, so they're just working hand in hand, and I think that will help culturally more than anything.
Sorry, we'll just put one here and then we'll come to you, that's okay.
I was just wondering how you consider the political landscape and the political overlay, because obviously that man over there before mentioned budget cycles, which our projects are really determined by budget cycles, but also the political landscape and the 4-year election cycle, but also the yearly cycle as well. Because timing is basically for our projects, and a lot of it is determined by that.
Yeah, and there is an indicator in there around political awareness and recognising that it's not happening in a vacuum. And I think there's it's recognising there's only so much that you as a project can control, but being aware of that to be able to adapt accordingly. And I think that's where so far we've landed in that particular area. But it's a really tricky one. It's not an easy answer. Can I go back to
Just a clarification, I'm an architect and everybody keeps mentioning project managers and engineers. I'd like to just acknowledge that there are other technical specialists who need this, this framework. And as much as I embody it in my work, there are lots who don't. So can we just broaden the...
thank you. There you go. Our first bit of feedback. Thank you very much.
So we had kind of gone down into each of the more question areas to look at the actual indicators and give you some feedback on that, so not timing. We had two, one of them was purpose, and the 6 indicators of purpose we really liked them, especially when talking to non-engagement people and the rest of the organisation. But we wondered, given our keynote presentation this morning, about whether or not testing assumptions and challenging assumptions would be another really cool heading, because we all got a lot of value out of this morning's session about how testing assumptions ahead of looking at ideas. And our other one was under relationships was the indicator responsible, and we talked about the fact that the indicators were all quite task orientated. It would be really nice to acknowledge or talk about the fact that there's also personality and empathy and a personality type in order to have a relationship, and so it's not necessarily you can perform those tasks but just do it terribly like a robot or a lawyer and come across wrong. Just some thoughts on those indicators.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Hi, did you have a...
No, it's just.
Oh, sorry.
It's more a comment that I noticed in our organisation, I think it's more about senior. This shouldn't try that. We work with hard. If we use this in our, what does that get thrown in people's heads? So we're dealing with quite aggressive stakeholders. Obviously with drought, and focus on all the issues. I think for us, we get brought in quite late in the piece, so we'll engage next week or in 2 weeks' time, and that creates difficulties. So to me, this is a great framework, but it's actually sitting really interesting about behind it to get into work. I think that's a comment rather than
thank you.
addition.
We've just got 5 minutes left, so do we need to wrap up or So I just wanted to, we didn't have time for the actual fishbowl today, or the way that the room was set up wasn't going to be absolutely conducive to being able to do that. But I wanted to throw out one of the questions that I thought would be helpful to go through with the industry director, Kirsty O'Connell, around how this could actually be used in work, and to get your perspective, Kirsty, on it.
Yeah, sure. So, hi everybody. It's so great to have such a full room and such a well-informed and experienced room. Wonderful, we're so delighted. Putting my own infrastructure practitioner hat on, because that's where I've spent most of my career. For me, the thing that I really like about the framework is the ability for us to start to compare like for like. And to talk as an infrastructure sector, so it is quite sector specific. To talk about performance and to understand how we're doing. You know, what does good look like? Because I know from personal experience, and I'd like to hear other thoughts. From personal experience, you're in project mode, you are 150% on that project, and it's just for consuming. It can be really hard to take the time to just put your head up and have a look around at what's happening in other projects and how you're faring relative to, I think we beat ourselves up quite a bit as practitioners.
Like 6.
Let's try this one. Yeah, so I think we could beat ourselves up quite a bit as practitioners, so it's useful just to have a tool to help keep it in perspective. Within our sector. So that's probably one thing that jumps out at me. And I think the other thing is the ability to use it alongside other frameworks. So it's not a case of us saying this is the be all and end all and something that has to replace anything else you're doing. It should be highly complementary, regardless of the process you're using, regardless of, thank you. Wow, that's great.
at the same time.
Regardless of the process that you're using, regardless of other objectives that you might have, you can use this as a complement and use it in that performance management aspect of your work. So for me, that's how I would use it personally. I'm sure others have other ideas, but I think that flexibility is great.
Any final comments or in relation to that question, how you might use it? Anybody like to share their thoughts?
I just have a question.
Yeah.
Is there any intention to get these standards to be dispersed or adopted at a statutory level across local government?
I think that's a question that's come out at some of the conferences, and Kirsty, did you want to, with you? Would you like to answer that one? I'll throw that with you.
Look, it's not out of the realms of possibility. I think though that we as an industry, I think we as an industry probably have that conversation to land over whether or not we want to have a minimum standard of engagement legislated and whether that then deters better performance. And it's certainly a discussion that I was part of at ISCA when I was on their working group and they were developing the next iteration of their standard. ISCA, I think, did really well in applying that carrot approach. People want to be recognised, they want to put their projects up and say, hey, I've achieved this level of performance. For me personally, that's the more appealing route. It becomes something you want to do because you're committed to a great job. With that said, I think there's probably still some projects out there that could benefit from having a minimum legislated you must approach. So yeah, I don't have a clear answer on that one. I think it's a discussion and a debate that we need to keep having, and the public sector has to have as well. It's a good idea.
Sandra, I just want to say, I think in relation to that question, I agree completely with Kirsty. That is a conversation that would need to occur. But what I can say in terms of what we are developing and producing, it is of a standard that would be robust enough to be a standard. So the indicators will have really well thought out measurements, and that's part of our work next year, is to really determine what are the measures, how do you do these measures, what's feasible, what's realistic, what data already exists, how can we make measurement efficient and not onerous. So all of those things sit behind this, and they give the potential for that future adaptability should that be a path that the sector wants to take. And that's another conversation.
We're just running out of time, so I just wanted to wrap up and thank you all for your feedback today, and I hope it was useful to be able to go through the standards. In terms of next steps, we're really looking forward to continue aligning this work with our major partners, including IAP2. As I mentioned, we're really excited to be able to go out to non-engagement professionals, including architects, and also working with those community members to really continue to refine this. And as Sara mentioned, we'll be developing the scorecard. Before we all go, I would really like to encourage you to take a look and enter, to carry out our State of Infrastructure and Community Survey, which you can find the link here in the QR code here. If you enter at the IAP2 conference, you can go to the door for a $150 and go to Spa voucher, which is a really great gift for yourself. But we are only as good as the data that we're able to get for you, and the survey data really provides us with a really good measure and an understanding of what's currently taking place within the sector. So the more people who are able to complete the survey, the better our data is. So if you have time to be able to complete that, we'd be really grateful. So that just brings me to really thank again everybody who's contributed to this work. It's been a really valuable experience for us all, and we particularly like to thank again Melbourne Water and all our major partners and supporters of this programme. So thank you for your time today, and enjoy the rest of the